The actual reasons why this happened on Simchat Torah, why it was that it took 6 hours for any reaction to occur, when the Army and Air Force bases were within earshot of what was going on. I have friends who were helicopter pilots, attack pilots, who were sitting in their cockpits, ready to take off, fully loaded, ready to stop them at the fence. And they didn't get their orders for 6 hours.
So we're all trying to make sense of what happened on October 7th, which is Shmini Atzeret. Some call it Simchat Torah, when we all know Gazans came in and basically slaughtered 1,000 Israelis and kidnapped a bunch, all in the matter of about 7 hours. So what I want to do is reverse engineer this thing a little bit to kind of help you understand why I believe that this was an inside job. First of all, we'll start with September 1st. By the way, everything I'm about to say will be backed up with actual links to news articles or video footage. And if you want any of my sources, I'm happy to give them. September 1st, the Israeli government confiscated the weapons of the security teams in the Gaza belt communities. This was done against the will of those security teams in the Gaza belt communities.
Because, I mean, it was like no one expected this to happen, right?
I think many people expected it to happen. I think the writing was on the wall. The government was warned by the army, by the intelligence, by the people who lived them themselves, who saw preparations and so on. But the government chose to ignore it. Not only that, they took the army out of this border, and they took most of the weapons from the units inside the kibbutzim who were supposed to guard the places. And this happened a very short time before the attack. They took him to the West Bank to secure the pogromist settlers in the Palestinian occupied territories. So I don't think it was a surprise to everybody.
The army had detachments spread out in all the communities in what we call the Gaza envelope. And okay, well, they decided that it wasn't necessary because no one was coming across. No one could get by the fence. So they did away with the army protection, and they kind of appointed local civilian security detachments. Then they took a lot of their guns away, and they said, you go buy your own bloody gun if you want one. Why? The most commonly heard word right now in Israel is lama. Why? Why would you do that? What was the explanation for that? I can't fathom it. I can't understand it. I can't wrap my head around it. Why? You're on an active frontier. It's a combat zone. Why are you taking military equipment away from the people who you've, by default, allowed or designated as the first responders? In a lot of cases, the security detachments who survived and have given evidence, they were totally outgunned. How am I supposed to defend a community with this when they're coming across with Kalashnikovs and RPGs and RKPs and all kinds of heavy infantry equipment? How am I supposed to shoot them with a 9mm pistol? Our guys did. They did. In some cases, they took the guns off the dead Hamasniks. That's how bad it is here. They had to strip the enemy of their equipment to use against them. Who's responsible for that? Lama. Why?
Why that happened, nobody knows. Fast forward to September 10th. On September 10th, the Moatzah, which is basically the municipalities of the Gaza Belt communities, received reports, these are civilians, received reports of increased tensions on the border of Gaza during the Jewish holidays, which of course span from Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Shmini Atzeret, which was on Saturday.
We were very hurt by the fact that the IDF did not know where are the scapegoats. They've warned us 3 weeks prior with people who came to the road and burned fields, sent incendiary balloons to burn our fields. And the IDF did not address this seriously.
Those same heads of municipalities asked the army if they should cancel their festivities in light of the warnings of increased tensions on the border of Gaza. And what did the army say? They said, no, don't cancel anything. It appears as though we're heading into a state of calm.
And I find it interesting that the concert held in Israel over the weekend, where there were attacks and many concert goers were killed. I find it interesting that the site of the concert was moved just 2 days prior to the concert.
Israel's security forces received enough warning signs prior to October 7 to prepare for Hamas's attacks, a Haaretz report reveals. The report pinpoints the Northern Brigade of the Israeli Army's Gaza division as responsible for security at the Nova Music Festival. Although the division's commander was aware of the warnings, the party's organizers weren't, and the event wasn't cancelled. The organizers who did call to report the attack in the early hours were told that forces were in chaos and that they were on their own. The organizers added that if they even had an hour's advance warning, they could have evacuated all festival attendees.
The paper also says Hamas did not plan the attack on the Nova Music Festival, but chose to do it spontaneously. Let's speak now to Hamda Salhout. She's in occupied East Jerusalem for us. So pretty extraordinary revelations, Hamda. Talk to us about this investigation that's being reported.
Well, a few different findings in this police report that was leaked by an official to Haaretz. The first one was that Hamas's attack on the Nova Music Festival on October 7th was not premeditated, and there wasn't really a way for them to have prior knowledge about the festival, specifically on that Saturday, because the organizers for the event requested an extension of the party. So it was actually only supposed to be held on Thursday and Friday, but after approval from the army, it was also extended to Saturday.
Now, you can assume that the Shabak did not know about this attack, but that's highly improbable. I mean, Israel is probably the most advanced surveillance state in the world, and the Gaza border is probably the most heavily surveilled. And the Shabak, who somehow knew about a guy who had corona in a toy store and tracked him all the way to a soccer stadium during the days of corona, somehow didn't know about this massive attack planned by thousands of random Gazans on pickup trucks and hang gliders. Are you serious? Are you really that stupid? Do you really believe that? Because if you do, I have a bridge to sell you.
It's now been pretty well confirmed that we got a warning of war from the Egyptians 3 days before the war started. So the question is, who received this warning? Mossad? Army intelligence? Amman? Foreign ministry? Somebody in the PMOs, in the Prime Minister's office? Who? Who was the recipient of this warning, and what happened to it? Because that's another guy that needs to go up against a wall.
But we begin with the New York Times reporting Israeli officials learned of Hamas's plan for the October 7th terror attack more than a year before it happened. According to the Times, Israel obtained a 40-page document outlining the group's strategy for the attack. It's unclear if Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saw the document himself. The Israeli military declined to comment on the New York Times report.
The Harrods report details 2 urgent consultations between top defense officials on the night of Friday, October 6th. The meetings were to ascertain the nature of the threat. The first consultation took place close to midnight and involved senior figures from Israel's security service, the Shin Bet, the head of the Israeli Army's Operation Branch, and the Army's Southern Command Chief. The second meeting occurred around 3 a.m. and involved the Shin Bet's chief, Ronen Bar. After this conversation, the Israeli army went with the Shin Bet's assessment that Hamas was only conducting training, but readied forces in the event that Hamas might attack.
So then there's the theory that they're called in Hebrew Tatzpitanot, which is basically the command and control center. These are the people, mostly females, who observe, who's tasked with observing the Gaza border fence. They say there's a theory that says that they were hacked, or that they conquered the, or that they blew it up before they could. They blew up the equipment that surveilled. Well, that's BS, because there's actual video footage that I'll also share with you of those same command control center operators reporting on the breach of the fence. The fence was breached in 15 different locations, and you want to tell me that the most highly advanced surveillance equipment on arguably any border in the world didn't pick that up, didn't report it? Well, they did, and it's documented. So don't believe that lie.
So they hacked our communications. Did they? I don't know. They could have. But what I do know is that physically they destroyed enough both to overcome the barrier and, get ready for this, alert people a couple kilometers away that they're coming across the border. They could hear it. They could see it. You don't need a sensor when you got 2 Mark I eyeballs. You could see them. There were phone calls, I've heard them, from soldiers saying, it's war. It's war. They're coming across in force. Send help now. Nothing. Nothing. Those weren't hacked. That communication wasn't hacked.
And you mentioned your friend was a helicopter pilot, and he was sitting there listening to this for hours.
The whole squadron was.
So the reason why I'm asking these questions is there's been quite a lot of talk from people that appear to be on our side from the ground, that are patriotic people, that suggest that this was more than just negligence. It was sabotage from within.
Now, once thousands of Gazans on pickup trucks and hang gliders invaded Israel, which apparently nobody knew about, right? Okay, you believe that?
Disturbing new evidence has emerged about what occurred on October 7 and who had advanced knowledge of what would be the biggest slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust. Earlier today, the government of Israel slammed 4 international media outlets, the New York Times, CNN, the Associated Press, and Reuters, over the conduct of 4 photojournalists in Gaza. Israel says these individuals had advanced knowledge of the attack by Hamas militants. There were photographers used by these outlets taking images as the attack was ongoing from the border area and including from inside Israel. Here we can see 2 of these photojournalists, not including the one who took the picture, clearly watching as an elderly Israeli woman is taken away. And footage has also emerged of a photographer holding a grenade on a motorbike, reportedly on the morning of the attack. Joining me now is author Rabbi Shmuley Bertaya.
What were New York Times, CNN, Reuters, photojournalists doing on the Gaza-Israel border at 6:30 a.m. on a Saturday morning? Were they camping out? Were they barbecuing for their families? They need to explain how they were there taking pictures if they had no advanced knowledge.
Which apparently no one knew about. They had 7 hours to kill everyone in their path, completely destroy kibbutzim. Not only that, take hostages back to Gaza, unscathed, unopposed. Now, there are people who say, well, a bunch of battalions were moved from Gaza over to Judea and Samaria. First of all, that's BS. Second of all, okay, so what if they did? Do you know how long it takes an attack helicopter to get activated and blow up any one of those tractors or pickup trucks or hang gliders that invaded Israel? Less than 5 minutes.
We need to get rid of a whole host of generals who were largely responsible for what just happened. The actual reasons why this happened on Simchat Torah will come out eventually. Why the Gaza division, whose headquarters were overrun, stood down. Why it was that it took 6 hours for any reaction to occur when the Army and Air Force bases were within earshot of what was going on. I had friends who were helicopter pilots, attack pilots, who were sitting in their cockpits, ready to take off, fully loaded, ready to stop them at the fence. They didn't get their orders for 6 hours. They could hear it. They could hear the fighting. They were called by friends in the border kibbutzim in Mosavim that were being overrun and slaughtered, saying, "Help us, please. They're killing our children." They weren't given permission to take off.
And I know all these things firsthand because I served on the Gaza border. Less than 5 minutes. It all could have been over. From 7:01 a.m. on October, 6th or 7th, on Saturday, I believe it was October 7th, it could have been a matter of 5 minutes before the whole thing was upended. And instead they had 7 hours, possibly 8, to conquer kibbutzim, kill thousands, and bring back hostages alive, unopposed.
22-year-old Gal Levy barely managed to get out alive.
Do you blame anyone?
Yes. I think the country and IDF, I don't know who, but they just left us over there. I was waiting 6 hours.
So you feel let down by the military, by the government?
I feel left down by the army.
How could it be that our army took 6 hours to defend our men, women, and children?
And there's many people that say, oh, well, this was just a breach. No, that's not a breach. I'm sorry, that's not a fucking breach. That's an inside job.
There is an inclination, listen, there is an inclination, a predisposition, when you're faced with something as improbable as this, not impossible, but improbable as this, it's even worse, to ascribe what the Germans called a Dolchstoß, a stab in the back by someone or some party.
Netanyahu intentionally let Hamas kill Israelis. Both the IDF and the Israeli Air Force both stood down for 7 hours. You won't believe what a Jewish charity leader told me today.
Israel has the most sophisticated intelligence in the world. There was no way the government didn't know that that was going to happen. We're friendly with several good people in Israel. One is Rabbi Hanania Weissman. He knows a lot of people in Israel. He knows confidential sources that he shared with us their information about the stand-down order. And he sent out a missive that, indeed, the IDF was given stand-down orders, both the Army and the Air Force, 7 hours to stand down while those attacks took place.
And oh, by the way, now America is coming with aid? Do you really think Israel needs American aid to fight Gaza? Gaza! Their most elite force, their Air Force is hang gliders, and their ground troops are pickup trucks. They don't even have a tank. And we need American aid Israel needs American aid to fight them? Are you fucking serious? You don't think that there's anything fishy going on here? You really trust the IDF to send in all these reservists into Gaza, the same people who A, didn't see this coming, Or the alternative, which is much worse, they're so incompetent, they can't even handle a couple of pickup trucks and hang gliders invading their border, killing thousands and taking hostages for 7 hours, practically unopposed, and able to go back into Gaza after 7 hours of this.
And the government now is threatening to arrest people like me, who are criticizing the government's past behavior, performance, and are accusing the government of being responsible for October 7th. Can you imagine that? Me accusing the government of being responsible for the largest murder of Jews since the Khurban. How could I do that? I must be a traitor.
ביבי נתניהו שלום, אנחנו נמצאים בשבי החמאס 23 ימים. אתמול הייתה מסיבת עיתונאים עם משפחות החטופים. אנחנו יודעים שהייתה אמורה להיות הפסקת אש, היית אמור לשחרר את כולנו, התחייבת לשחרר את כולנו, ובמקום זה אנחנו נושאים במחדל הפוליטי, ביטחוני, צבאי, מדיני שלך, בגלל הפשלה הזאת שעשית ב7 לאוקטובר, בגלל שלא היה צבא שם, אף אחד לא הגיע, אף אחד לא שמר עלינו, ואנחנו אזרחים תמימים, אזרחים שמשלמים מיסים למדינת ישראל, נמצאים בשבי, בתנאים לא תנאים. אתה הורג אותנו, אתה תהרוג, אתה רוצה להרוג את כולנו, אתה רוצה עם צה"ל להרוג את כולנו, לא מספיק טבחת בכולם, לא מספיק אזרחים ישראלים נהרגו, שחרר אותנו עכשיו, שחרר את האזרחים שלהם, שחרר את האסירים שלהם, שחרר אותנו, שחרר את כולנו, תן לנו לחזור למשפחות שלנו עכשיו! עכשיו!
היום יום שני, אור לראש חודש כסלו, חודש האור, אנחנו פה מוסיפים אור אחרי השבת השחורה שהייתה לעם ישראל. גדוד 9208 בפיקודו של ישראל בן פזי לא יעצור, ימשיך עד שנשלים את המשימה שקיבלנו. כובשים, מגרשים ומתיישבים. כובשים ומגרשים ומתיישבים. שמעת ביבי? כובשים ומגרשים ומתיישבים. יושב ראש הקהילה של בית חנון, תודה רבה לך.
זה יוצר תודעה של נכבה, או שזה משהו זמני?
יהיה להם לאן לחזור? אנחנו עכשיו מגלגלים בעצם את נכבת עזה, אם תרצה, נכבת עזה.
מקדמים.
זו נכבת עזה.
כולם, עכשיו. בשירת התקווה, עמוד דום, כולכם קצינים. כל עוד בלבה ומימה נפש יהודי הומייה עדניזה קדימה עין לציון צופיה עוד נוגעת תקוותנו.
הכי משמח בחיים. אני אסביר לכם למה זה החודש הכי משמח בחיים מאז שאני נולדתי כבר יותר מ-40 שנה. כי הגענו לשלב, הגענו לנקודה שעם ישראל עולה קומה, עולה כיתה. אנחנו סוף סוף מבררים מי אנחנו. נולדנו לפני 75 שנה בילדה מחודשת. התבססנו, התחלנו לעבוד על הגוף שלנו, גדלנו, מתחיל שאלות זהות. מי אנחנו? מה אנחנו? מה אנחנו רוצים לעשות עם עצמנו? מה זה טוב? מה זה רע? מה זה רשעה? מה זה טומאה? ומה אנחנו באים לבשר? עוד דבר אנחנו מבררים בימים האלה, וזה דבר חשוב מאין כמוהו, הארץ שלנו. כל הארץ! כולל עזה! כולל הלבנון! כל הארץ המובטחת! אנחנו נחזור בענק. גוש קטיף זה כזה קטן לעומת מה שאנחנו נגיע בעזרת השם.
תראו איזה יופי. הכל מלא דגלים. מדהים. מדהים.